Okay, so once you download that database, it will look like this. And I'm not sure if your system has access in it or not. If it doesn't, you'll know it. If you do, you know it. So what you do is you can double click to open it. Okay. If it doesn't work, don't worry about it. Okay. So if you open it, it will look something like this. If you can see, just like regular Microsoft Word document, or like an Excel, right? On the left side, I mean, yours might be a little bit different depending on what version you have, but it should be similar. So you have a nations table. Okay, it's a table here, and if you double click on that table, you see it has 1, 2, 3, 4 fields, right? Four columns, and so the first column is the name of the countries. You know, they should say country, but you call it name. Okay, and then you have the continent that the country or the nation belongs to, like Afghanistan. So you can see here you have some duplicates, right? The continent. You have Africa here, Africa, and so on. So when you say, show me all the countries, all the names here that belong to the continent Africa, right? So it's going to go in here and grab this country, and other countries that have Africa in there. At the same time, you grab the population and the area too, right? So you only filter out only those countries. Or if you want to say, show me all the countries that have a population greater than 3.2, right? If you do that, then it's going to look into this column and look for all those numbers that are greater than 3.2 and grab everything out. So the only ones that do not show up are small ones, like this one here will not be shown, this will not be shown, and this will not be shown, and so on. So anything smaller than 3.2 will not be pulled out, okay? So you can sort that out in here. Okay, so this table here has all the countries and all the continents along with some population. This is like, I'm not sure if it's real or not. If it is, it's probably based on an older date, because these are now no longer accurate. But it's good enough for our information. So in here, in Microsoft Access, if you want to add a new table, you just go here, create, and then add a new table here, right? See, add a new table, you give it a column name, and then so on. Okay, it's very easy for a database design. And you have now it's a different table here. Okay, so I don't want to put that in there. Okay, so I'm just gonna close that one. So this is Access. Okay, so let's close that. And you can see the same thing in Visual Studio when we connect it to it. Okay, so let's go into Visual Studio. In here, as you can see, I have it here. I want to do this thing all over again. So let's create a new project, and I'll call this one here Chapter 10 DB. Okay. So we get our usual form here, and let's make this form a little bit bigger, because I want to be able to display those data here. Okay, just want to show this form in the center screen. All right, so now we want to connect to the database first. Okay, to do that, you need to go into your toolbox, and under the Data tab, expand that. You'll see some, we did a data grid view before, right? That's something you will need. You can drag that over here for now. We're going to need that anyway. Just put that in the form. What you need is the data source. Okay, well, the data source is the one that's responsible for connecting to the database. So if you drag that right now and drop into the form, you see that it's not visible there. Okay, this is not something that is visible in the form. It's dropped down to the bottom of your screen here. Okay, anything that's not visible will be down here. Okay, so get timer, all these data binding sources, and there are some others as well that you won't see up here. So anything that's not visible will be down there. Okay, so this binding source 1, that's the name. You can change it if you want. You can say, binding source that binds to, the UN table or whatever it is. That doesn't matter. but I'm just going to keep as is. I'm not going to change that. That's not kind of really important right now. What's important is we need to connect to this project here. So if you select the binding source object, and under your properties, you'll see two things called data member and data source. Okay, so right now your data source is none. In order for the data member to work, you have to have a data source, right? So the data member is really the tables. So you'll see there is the tables that is inside that database. Okay, so since we only have one table, eventually after we connect it to the database, you'll see that there's one table in there for you to select. Because right now there's none. There's nothing there. Okay, so we need to connect to the data source, and this is the order of how you connect to your database. So you put a data source, put it in here. Okay, you click on it, and then go to the data source, and then click the drop down, and it should say none, because there's nothing there yet. If you have it, it would list there for you. And we're going to click on this link here that says Add Project Data Source. Okay, click on it, and you should have this configuration wizard, and you have several options there. Okay, what we want is just the database. Okay, we're not going to do any SharePoint or objects like that, just the database. So make sure that's selected. Go next, and now you see the data set. Okay, that is the type of database model you want to use. It comes in as a set of tables. So select that and go next. Okay, so now we need to connect using the type of connector, like the ADO or the SQL Server or things like that. If yours has something there, don't worry. If you don't have it, don't worry, that's fine. We're going to add a new one anyway. So we need to get a new connection. So let's click on the new connection here. And now you should see that I have the Microsoft Access here. If you don't see it, okay, for the data source, click on the change, and you should have a list of different types of data sources. Okay, so you have, this is for Microsoft Access, this is for something else, ODBC, for another type of connector to the .NET. You have the Microsoft SQL Server. Okay, this is another one here. You have the Oracle here. You have others, like for DB2 and others there. So for this one, we're just going to have the Microsoft Access, because I would love to use the Microsoft SQL Server. With that means you will have to have the SQL Server installed on your laptops, which I think you may not have it already. I do have it, but once you have it, you can connect it directly. Okay, but for now, we're just going to connect to the Access database file and click OK. You can select the default, which is fine, and then click OK. You can always say, use this selection every time, so you don't have to come back and do this every time, right? You can select that. And then now you should be back here. And the next thing is we need to find the database. We just downloaded, right? It's called un.accdb. Okay, so click Browse and go find that database. So wherever you downloaded before, click it and go find it. And so I put my in the Documents folder. So here it is, un.accdb. Okay, and click Open. And then now you can leave the login thing here out unless you secure your database with a user and password. If you do that, then you have to put that in there. But ours, I don't think we secure that, so it's open. There's no authentication. And before you continue on, you want to test the connection. Okay, if you test, it will say successful or not. If you test it, it says has an error, then we need to do something. Okay, so if you don't have it, so just cancel everything. Okay, we need to go to the other step first, and this is only for one time only. So if you fix this, it should work the next time around. Now, if you go to back to the core shell, I put a message here, right? You see something like this when you get this message. It may not say the same thing. It may say something else. Okay, but it's the same issue. So what you need to do is you need to download a patch from this link here. Okay, so just click on that link, and it should download that patch for you automatically. So here it's an executable file access database um, engine, right? So that your Visual Studio can talk to the Visual Access database. And once it's downloaded, just click to install it. Okay, just go through the installation process. Should only take a couple minutes or sooner. And once you are done with the installation, then let me know. Okay, so yeah, just restart Visual Studio and then open the project. Yeah, it should be listed here in the recent tab. Click on that to load your project again. Okay, so you should be back to where we have started before. Your binding source should still be there. So now if you go through the same process again, hopefully it should work. Okay. So again, go to binding source. On the data source here, just go to drop down and click add project data source. Okay, database, data set, and if it's not here, again, just go new connection. Yeah, we haven't connected yet. Your data source should be the Microsoft Access. If it's not, just change it and select that first option there. And again, just click OK. And then now go and choose your database, as I said before, and test the connection. Make sure it says successful or succeeded. Yours okay? Okay. Is everybody else okay? Okay, good. So now you don't have to do any more. Okay, you're done. So next time if you connect to a different database, you go through the same process, but just make sure you're able to connect it to it. If you can't connect it to it, maybe something's wrong. Either the DB is corrupted or it has a password protected or something. Okay. And now you can click OK, and then you should see the UN database listed here. Okay, it'll be here. So later, if you create another binding source, if you get this page, this will be listed here. Unless you want to go and choose a different database, I want to choose a different one. For example, I want to choose this other database. Okay, you can connect multiple databases in here per binding source. Okay, so just click next after that. Well, before I go there, you can go back here. So right here, if you click the plus symbol, you'll see that this is the code behind it. If you want to code this manually in the code, this is what you need to write. Okay, that's why sometimes it's easier to go through the GUI interface. Okay, but you can rewrite this as well. And for example, in Java, you will actually do this in the code, and unless you have a different application to do it. So go next. It would say the connection you selected uses a local data file is not in the project. Okay, do you want to make a copy of it? You always say yes. Okay, the reason is because if you don't do that, and if you were, unless you're already ready to go live, okay, if you're usually during development, you want to make a copy of it and then put it inside your project, so you don't mess up with the actual database. If you do it, actually delete everything. Oops, that's it, right? There's no you can't restore it. You can, but it'll be very, very hectic to do that. So just say yes to make a copy of that database into your project. Okay. And then the next screen, it was to say the connection is called UN connection string. Just keep as is. Keep it default. It's fine. Then let's go next. And now you see this table is to choose your objects. Okay, so database objects. These are all objects. A table is the object. Each particular table here is object. So this database called UN.accdb has only one table called nations. We saw earlier in the access file, right? Just that if you expand that, you see that it has all these 4 columns. Okay. If you just want to pick, I want to only show the continent and the population, you pick those 2, right? But in our case, we want everything, so we want to click the entire nations table. You can do that, or you can click the tables and it grabs everything. If we have 10 tables, it'll grab all of them along with it. But you can pick and choose. The views, we don't have to do that because I don't think there's any views. Views is just another, it's not a table, but it's another it's like a virtual table that you can create to, view some data inside any of these tables here. And again, we're not going to go into that route. But so just select the tables and then go finish. So now, if you look at your Project Explorer, you'll see the database. This is a copy only. Okay, it's not your actual database. So if you happen to delete it or change the data, you're still okay. Okay, it's the actual one, the real one is still out there. You have another one called the data set. Okay, this data set here. If you double click on it, okay, you'll see that on the left side you have in the toolbox the data set shows up, and you have a nations table here, and all it does is it lists the actual structure of your database. So if you can see, look very similar. You see the key here. So in this example, the name is actually the key, which is the primary key, right? That means it is unique. So there's no two countries have the same name. That's what it means, right? That's why it's unique. You could have another column or field called ID and just make that unique, which is fine. But in this case, it's okay. You can also make, because that's lists all the countries. And then all those four fields here are shown. So this one here shows you the skeleton or the structure of your database table. If you have three tables, you will see three tables here. And if they're connected, they join together, you'll see the line here attached to each table, like the diagram I showed you earlier. Okay? Is that design? Now, above it is the actual database, which is the copy that we put in here. If you double click on it, on the left side also, you see that it has the tables, right? If you click the table arrow, the little arrow there, you'll see the nations table, the actual table names. If you have three tables, you'll see three of them here. If you click the arrow again, you see the actual four fields, which is the same as these, right? The same stuff. This is a different view of your database. So that's the nations table. Below that is the view, because we didn't select it. Okay, you don't see the view. Again, views is just a virtual table that you can create in database. So the store procedures and function, these are just functions and procedures you can also write and store inside the database as well. We don't have those. So just this table here called nations. Now, if you right-click on this nations table, right-click on it and select the retrieve data. That means select everything in the database table. Same thing. You click on it, and it will show you the same things we saw earlier in visuals in the in Access, right? The same data, the name and so on. And you can change it. I think you can change it. I'm not sure we allow you to save. Yeah, it does save it too. So as you can see, you can actually access the data here. And again, this is just a copy. So if you make changes, and if you don't like it, you can delete it, go back and reconnect to the actual database and make another copy, right? So I'm going to delete that back. So you can change the information here as well. So if you have another table, you can access the same way, okay? But scene here is just scene on here. When you run it, you want to be able to pull this data out into your form. So like our form here, how do you pull those data and display here, right? That's what we want to do. So, so once you have the data set connected, right, binding source connected, we have two objects show up here. Also, we have down here, before we only have the binding source one, right? And now we have something called UN data set. Okay, that's also added in there. Now, go back to the binding source. So usually, after you add the binding source, you connect it to the database. Okay, the next thing is on the data member here. Okay, this binding source have to connect to a table. Okay, so now if you click the drop down, you see that now we have nations there, which is that table that we selected. So if you don't select any table, you won't see it. So we want to connect to this nations table. Okay, as soon as you do that, okay, it adds another one here. There's the adapter right there. the table adapter that is responsible for communicating between your program and the database, the data set. Okay, without this, you cannot communicate with that the table data set. So I mean, all these are done automatically for you. And then, so now if you go into your form, click on your form here, okay, and then click this icon here to do the source view or code view. You'll see that this is added for us automatically. Okay, you can delete all this green stuff. This is some comments. You can delete those. Okay, it's added inside the MyBase, right, .load. So in other words, this is your actual form, right? So when you run this form, it loads the database, and then it adapts, connects to the adapter, and then this is what we need to access. Okay, the UN dataset, which is this guy right here, UN dataset dot, right, dot nations. Okay, that's the data set, UN dot nations, because the nations table. If you call a different table, it would say UN data set dot employee. So if you look at, if you remember from the PowerPoint, right back here, it has that same example there. So like right here, right, employees dataset dot table employee, same thing. You just call it in that way. Ours, we happen to just leave it as a default, so we have this. You could change this to something else, but we didn't change that, so we'll end up with that. So to connect to the table inside there, you have to say we have to use this one here. Okay, so